Hey, this is Mr. Jones. Welcome to the Three Count Podcast. Here we go.
I'm in fashion, rolling cold
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast presents Now We're Into Ring, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And by now, after like season 4, our 300th and something episode, I would just hope you'd say with me, I am your Sherpa, because like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficient than you can, and that's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering. So who's entering the ring today? Well, this person right here can be found at ATCW, House of Pain, SWA, and EWA. He is merciful. He is one who's held titles. He is menacing. He's also cool, calm, just like your mom under a couple of palm trees inside her palm. Something like that. I don't know what he said. Anyway, here's the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jones.
What's going on, Mr. Red Dog? How you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Doing real good. You know, it's been kind of a crazy day today. You know, just kind of running around, you know, between the shoot job and parenting stuff. And, you know, you come home and
That's
the dog's
life.
like, yeah. And then the dog's like, yo, take me outside. I'm like, all right, I guess we'll go do that. And then, you know, just trying to live this life, right?
Yeah, mine's currently sleeping right over there, so I know what you mean by that one.
But, yo, how have you been, man? Because I think the last time we saw each other was EWA. And I think we were in Bel Air.
Yep, it's been a minute. Have had my ups and downs. You know, it's life. Had a couple of moments where I had to take a mental break from everything, but I'm doing good because life is good. That's all I really can say. Life is good. I'm still around. I can't complain.
It's always a big thing that you hit like on a valuable point that we're just gonna just jump right into, right? It's like sometimes like you just need time away from everything, just even like the things that you love, because sometimes they just become exhausting. You're like, you stop doing them because they're fun, and you start doing them because you're like, I have to do this thing. And sometimes like, no, you don't. You don't have to do anything. In fact, if you want to just sit in bed all day, just kind of curl up with your pillow and just sleep, hey, you're free to do that. But like, it is important that sometimes like we just take time away from those things that we just truly enjoy, because like it gets refreshing and you remember like why you're doing it, and you have a lot of fun when you get to do it.
Yeah, like when I was coming back from wrestling after my knee injury, like I was working so hard, and they came back, and I was like, I'm good, and then like just anxiety just started coming up out of nowhere, and I don't know why. Like I was putting too much pressure on myself to try and get to more bookings and all this kind of stuff, and then I ended up just going to being a hermit because I just didn't want to disappoint myself, and of course didn't want to disappoint people who were take that booking for what it was, but it's bad. Why just weird?
Sorry, like the internet is like weirdly cutting out. I'm not quite sure what's happening, but no, you definitely it's funny because like it's funny because you bring it up, right? And it's something I've had to deal with too. Was just like, am I doing it? And I'm only in my 3rd year, but I'm always like, am I doing enough? Should I do this? Should I do that? And then I like find myself like getting nervous and stuff like that. And the funny thing is, and I think even at EWA, I think you saw it too. Like I just have a bag of gummy bears next to me. And so whenever I start feeling anxious and stuff like that, I just start popping gummy bears and just start eating them, like whether I'm on the floor or just chilling out or just like we're calling a match. I'm always eating. Like I always have a bag of gummy bears around me because what it ends up doing is as I'm chewing my gummy bears, like one, it's really delicious. Let's be fair, right? They're really fun. They're really good tasting. But then two, like I start focusing on the gummy bear and stop focusing on everything else. So I'm like, all right, it gets my mind out of that like anxious zone. And I'm like, all right, so let's talk about the match. What do we want to do? We want to do this, and this. All right, cool. And I start eating some gummy bears, thinking about the match back, and then I play it out, and then like we keep going. I'll just slowly eat. And then usually at that time, somebody else would notice I'm eating gummy bears and like, what are you eating gummy bears for? I'm like, yo, just it helps with my anxiety. And and some people see them like, I like Noah Idol from Pure Ignorance, Chaz and Prince. They always like ask me for like a handful. I know recently, Scum Dog from Dog Nation, he won't tell you he has, but he's definitely come through and like asked. Andino is the same way. Like everybody that sees me, like it'll be like, yo, can I get a couple of those? I'm like, yeah, no doubt. Because I think everybody starts to see like, oh yeah, no, like he might be onto something with this.
Something so simple yet so effective. I usually, when I have those moments, I'll just pop my headphones in. I'll just be in the corner just listening to music, or I'll just literally just go outside sometimes. And people are like just like looking at me, but I'm just literally standing in the corner just listening to music because I'm just like trying to calm myself down. But that gummy bear idea, that's an idea. I might have to try that one.
Yeah, I forgot like who. I think I got it from. I was listening to Joe Rogan Experience, and I forget who was talking about it. And they were, like one thing it does do, it's like a benefit. It's like a fast carb, so it gets in your system, hits your bloodstream pretty quick, and then you can get like your body starts to use all the sugar and stuff that comes off of it. But like another part of it too is that like I said, for me, it just mentally it just pulls me out of like whatever like tunnel I'm starting to get focused in. It pulls me out real quick, and I'm like, all right, this is still just a show, right? So I calm down like instantly, and like the first time I started doing it, right, I was actually working a match with Beastman in West Virginia, and I was so nervous because I wanted this match. One of my other friends had pulled out. I wanted the match, so I asked. I got it, and I'm sitting in the back, and I'm just nervous as shit, and I'm like eating gummy bears, and like we had a really good match. And then the next week, I'm at another event, and I hadn't been eating gummy bears, and I'm not gonna say that the segment was terrible, but the segment and the match kind of fell apart pretty quick. So the next week, I was at another show, and I brought another bag of gummy bears, and I started eating them, and I was like, all right. So I had another, what I thought was like a pretty decent match. I was like, okay, I think there's something to this. And then like every single time that I didn't have gummy bears with me, like something bad happened, like in the match. So I'm like, all right, I'm supersticious. We're gonna stick with this. This is a thing now.
Hey, that works. I'm literally gonna have to try that my next time, 100% for sure.
But yo, for those who don't know, we'll get into the intro. Who is Mr. Jones?
So if we take it back, Mr. Jones used to be the show, Mr. Jones. I used to just want to go out there and, whether I lost or won, I didn't care. I just wanted to steal the show. Like you can't see it, but I have the same tattoo that Shawn Michaels has on his arm. That's my favorite wrestler of all time, and he has the worst WrestleMania record of all times, basically. But he always stole the show, and that was my mindset when I first started wrestling myself. Shout out to Miss Mia Yim. It's because of her that I'm actually wrestling. Long story short, went to high school with her, but after we graduated, I saw her doing a moonsault in a wrestling ring, and I'm like, hello, how do I do this? And then next thing I know, I'm doing it myself. But when I first started wrestling, it was me. I saw myself as Dolph Ziggler and Shawn Michaels, but I kept losing. But I don't like to toot my own horn, but I can say that I stole some shows back in the day. And then just over the last year, I just didn't like that anymore. I didn't like going out there just to lose and steal a show. And now I just want to win. I'm going to beat everyone up. I'm going to beat you down. I just want to be ruthless. I'm going to beat everyone up. No, I want gold. I want championships. And I want to get to the top. I don't care about stealing the show. I don't care about having a good match with your fellow fan-friendly wrestler. I just want to win. I want gold. Sorry, not sorry. That's what ruthless, and that's where the ruthless came from right there.
And it's funny because like as you like build your world up around like, and I know a lot of people are like, well, you don't really have a character. It's you essentially like cranked up to like 1,000, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's aspects of like characters that you like add to your piece and stuff like that. And so like you want your person to like get meaner and then like more ruthless, or you kind of go the other way, right? You go with the comedy side, you kind of go with the fun, the playfulness, and but you're still eventually the whole purpose of wrestling though is to win the match. And so it's funny how you bring it up, like you're like, I don't care if I Like I didn't care if I lost or not. I just wanted to still show. Now at this point, you're like, nah, like I care about losing because I want to win. Like
Exactly.
everybody wants to be the top spot, and like obviously, like you kind of have to like work your way up, but you know sometimes things happen.
Exactly. And it's funny how you were just like how you were just talking and saying you need to be more ruthless. That's exactly how this persona came up. I was talking to my best friend, shout out to Rufio. And he was like his favorite wrestler is Stone Cold. And he was like, man, you just need to be more Stone Cold, more just more evil, more ruthless. And we just stopped and we just like, holy crap, that's it. And then just the wheel started spinning. I'm like, this works. And I'm happy of how it started. I want to continue it more because I haven't had that many opportunities to truly show what I mean by Ruthless Jones. I had a little bit of it with a match with Grizzly O last year, but Grizzly O is Grizzly O. Size difference, he kind of got me. Plus, I was trying to play some tricks with him in that beginning of that whole thing with him and Tomahawk, but that's a story for a different day. But he got me good on that night. But that was the only a glimpse of what Ruthless can be, and I want to show the world more.
Hold on one second. Yes, it's really that important for what? Is it your charger? Is it that it needs electrical tape, or is it that it's just fried? Okay, I'll come check it after I get done with this interview. All right. All right. Yo,
It is all good.
yeah. Well, it's the first time that she's ever like interrupted an interview before, so I felt like something was going on. I was like, that was weird. She's just standing there awkwardly. So I was like,
Things
all
happen,
right,
man.
that's
Things happen.
but let's get this back up. So 3, 2, 1. That's crazy. So a question then, how did you get into the business then? Oh, did you catch my question?
Well, I didn't even hear it. What happened?
Oh, bet, because I guess it froze. That's wild.
Yeah.
All right, so 3, 2, 1. So I guess it's interesting. I'm curious though, like, how did you get into the business?
So, like I said, me and I went to high school with Mia Yim. None of my friends liked wrestling. None of her friends liked wrestling. She was on her Twitch recently, said I was a popular kid, saying that I talked to her. Wasn't that popular, but whatever you want to say. But we just bonded over wrestling. Like we two different friend clips, but we just talked wrestling. So she graduated and I saw her doing a moonsault on Facebook. She just did a moonsault, and I was like, "What?" So I literally texted her. I'm like, "What? Where did this picture come from?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm training in Manassas right now." And I'm like, "We literally live around the corner from each other. Why didn't you tell me about this before?" So next thing I know, I'm in the car with her. We're going up to this training spot in Manassas. It's actually the same spot that Mickey James trained, Logan LaRue trained, Kaida Pro. So that was my first instance into pro wrestling. And I walked into that training center and just I watched the people train and I heard my first heard the bumps, everything. I'm just like, this is it. This is where I want to be. And then a couple of weeks after that, Stephanie actually, well, Mia, whoops, she had her first match in North Carolina. She asked me to go with her. We drove four hours to North Carolina, and we just talked the whole time. And I watched her do her first wrestling match, and I was hooked. And we drove back. Literally one day, we drove to North Carolina, came back in one day, and I was like, I'm hooked. And ever since then, I trained at Kaida. I was actually the last paying student for Kaida, and then they closed down in about 2009. And then unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to get back in the ring until 2010, 11. But with my savior, John Rambo, I don't care what anyone says about him. John Rambo is the best. I found his school in Hagerstown, and I learned pro wrestling from old school to new school, but I learned the old school way. And I, if I didn't learn that way, oof, I don't know what kind of mindset I would have. But John Rambo, He taught me well. He taught me right. I don't care what anyone says about him. I have mad respect for that man right there. And that was at the House of Pain. And then I won the Rookie of the Year. And next thing I know, I met TJ, met Grizzly O, met Tomahawk, and it kind of took off from there.
It's funny too because like I'm like not even from like this area, right? So I'm from Nebraska, and then like I moved around and then landed here. And after like I met Van Williams, he kind of pointed me in the direction to find Sicken. And then once Sicken like trained me, like I started meeting all those people too, like Grizzly O, and I met Tomahawk, and of course TJ Sykes. And it's just been so funny to like see how like everybody's circle like grows, and then like it just like you start networking with everybody around, and just how quickly like those network happens. Because like I know I just got done talking with another promoter from another area, and he was like, yeah, maybe we'll have you work out with Trip. And I was like, Trip, like the sadist Trip? And he was like, yeah, you know Trip? I was like, yeah, I know madness of Trip. I was like, yo, let's go. And so it's just funny how like you're like one link away from like knowing somebody who knew that person.
Yes, I agree with that statement 100%. I've met a couple of people. I'm like, oh, you know them and all this kind of stuff. Like, it just blows my mind. You know what I mean? It's a small world, but it's a big world, and kind of I want to say, yeah. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Like and the one thing I've done is, and it's probably me being an introvert, I have kind of made my circle smaller, and I still have some of my people that I can reach out to, but I don't have that many anymore, and I need to fix that, and that's why that's what I'm trying to do going forward, trying to make my networking and get my circle back big again, because it's very small again, and it's all my fault, but it's just the damn introvert in me, you know.
No, but it is the thing though, is that like once you kind of climb back up in your shell, like it's like the safe spot, but then like you start to yearn for like that adventure. And the thing is, it's I think it's because of this drug called wrestling that makes us like want to go out and like find new people to work with, or you find people who are like you're genuinely excited to meet and want to go hang out with and talk with and stuff like that. So then you like start to open back up. You're like, well, if that person's cool, I think that person might be cool because they're friends and they're kind of like each other. And then you like make the jump and you're like, oh, I'm talking to that person. And now I'm talking to this person and I'm talking to that person. So then next thing you know, it's like, after a while you're like, oh, I'm familiar with a lot of these people. So it's kind of, I do understand where that comes from though.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. And I like one of the, and recently EWA, when I met Eel O'Neill, like, oh, that man right there. Like some of the matches we've had have been one of my funnest, but just like talking with him and just seeing how he's just networking. I love and hate that guy, but I love him so much, And I consider Eel O'Neill and TJ Sykes my two top opponents. Both of them, I love them to death, but I hate them so much to death because like some of the classics I've had with TJ, man, I didn't think I could do. And then like, because I was a few years behind him when we wrestled back then. And that boy led me through the promised land. And then working with Eel, like seeing how his mind works for simple things, I'm like, you really never stop learning in wrestling. So like those two men right there, I love them and hate them at the exact same time. And I want to meet more people like them, and I want to expand my knowledge because I can definitely say I haven't learned as much as I should have been learning in the last couple of years. I want to learn more. I need to get out there and learn more,
Yeah, no doubt. I definitely understand where you're coming from with that because I meet a couple people, and I guess this podcast has like opened me up to like meeting a ton of people because like just everybody from like TJ and Dino, Martin Stone is another perfect example of someone that like I met through a friend of mine who coincidentally was a friend of one of my friends in the Air Force, if that makes sense. So like as I'm here in the Air Force, I meet one friend who introduced me to another person who's a pro wrestler who then introduces me to Martin Stone. And like here I am having full conversations with Danny Burch about like different types of things, and we brought him on the show, we talked to him, and then I get to meet people like Eel O'Neill as well, and just like the lessons I get to learn from them, and I'm very much appreciative of this because I always think I always have a sponge in my bag. Like I've said that, I mentioned that a couple times, but I've never mentioned it like recently. But I have a sponge in my bag to always kind of remind myself that I need to soak up more things. And so like everybody around me, I'm always like, dude, there's so much going on in these locker rooms that people just don't understand. They're like the way people call a match, the way people are talking. There's always something like happening, and I'm always interested in listening. And I need to start taking advantage of this more, right? On going on shows that I'm not booked on. And when I'm there, just sitting in the locker room, and someone would be like, is this a place that you should be at? I'm like, actually, I just want to hear you call your match. And that's it. Like, I just want to hear how you guys call it, how you guys are talking about it, just to kind of listen. I got that idea from, Jesus, who was I talking to? It was one of these episodes. You guys will put it in the comments below. But I learned it from an episode on here. And I was like, dude, that's such a smart decision. It was somebody's little brother was just asked if they could go listen to somebody else call a match. And that's how they learned how to call a match. I was like, that's crazy to hear.
Wow. Okay. I like that. Yeah. And like, that's one thing, like, one of my fellow wrestling friends asked me to come to one of the shows coming up very soon. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make it there just to, watch and just, cause you're right. Like I've listened to so many people just call their matches, and like everyone is different. And like, it's so crazy. Like I've seen people do word for word, and then just like, what just happened out there? Then I see some people just barely speak, and I'm like, how was that just so amazing? Like, how did that happen? Like I found my little medium. I have to work backwards. And it works out for me. But then I'll use Grizzly O. That's one of my favorite people. Like we were calling a match. Like it was our first match, and I'm like, I really never saw how his brain worked, because I always did it my way. And I'm like listening to how he does it, and I'm just sitting there like, I'm just learning again right now. And now I was like, when I think about it now, just talking about it, like I'm getting the goosebumps, and like the goosebumps over. Just like I just want to be in the locker room hearing someone call a match, and I just want to be there. I want to be in that environment again. Like, oh, I miss it so much.
It was something because like I had just Incredible talking to me about it, right? And he was like, he challenged me, right? And I've done it a couple times, but I need to keep working on it. He was like, I just want you to call the opening, right? Actually, we'll just like call the opening and call the ending and nothing else. Just go out there, have your opening spot, have your finish, and then just go and just have fun. And I'm like, that is crazy.
I don't think I could do that. Like me, I need bullet points. Like I just need to know where we're working to, and then I'm good. Like I can fill in the blanks. I can't fill in the whole blank, but I can fill in a good amount of blanks. And I just need my bullet points, and I can get there. And I remember I had a match with Eel O'Neill, and Elijah Burke was backstage, and like he watched our match. And this is the one thing that like this is when it kind of my wheel started turning, that I wanted to change from the show to something else. Was it like he was like, hey, I see you guys had something on, but you didn't explain the story. And I'm like, wait, no, I like in back. Of course, I don't say this out loud, but back in my head, I'm like, no, we explained the story. Beginning the match, I was yelling. I'm like, no, remember last time? And then he explained. He was like, no, you guys just looked like you guys were mad at each other, but you didn't explain the story. And then like, boom, light bulb. I'm like, I get it. And like that was just one of those little things I could just check off my checklist of things that I learned that I need to keep always in the back of my head. And now every time I call a match, I'm like, there's got to be some elements of a story in here, even if it's small or big, but I need to put that out there. And that's like every time I'm calling them on now, like I still do it from backwards, still go backwards, but I'm always like, well, what story are we telling? Like I have to tell a story now. Like I need to do that. So I need to get out more and try and tell more stories. Hi, bud.
I think that's important too, and it's something that I have to think about. Like being that I've only been in for a few years, but this is something that like a lot of people have kind of brought up to me, was like, hey, I want you to either A, listen to the crowd, B, remember what the story that we're telling, and three, or C, right? Uh, just be aware. That's like the biggest one I keep hearing, right? And so I'm like, all right, cool. So
Oof.
like as I'm like outside, I'm starting to like hear the crowd, and I'm like really starting to like feel where things are kind of moving and like interact more with the crowd. Or if I'm a heel, you know, talk my trash and like beat up a baby face. And it's like you're always constantly like kind of like picking and listening to what's going on with the crowd, because you want to make sure that they get it right. And it's weird too, because like whenever you're like talking about telling stories, like for me, like one of my favorite stories to always tell is like David and Goliath, right? Like you're the little guy,
Yes.
you're facing the big guy, obvious, kind of easy. Like he's just throwing you around, you're just trying to work something to get something to happen, and then boom, you hit that big shot, and then you just take it home, right? Whereas like when you start meeting other people, like I have to like start asking questions like, why are we telling this story, right? Like I recently was working at a show, and I started watching back the match, and I was like, yeah, this just looks like two people going out there just fighting. There's really nothing like being said here. Like
Mhm.
the person can tell me that this was the story that we were gonna tell, but we didn't really tell that. We were just kind of like, hey, yo, these are just two dudes who are mad at each other that are fighting. And you bring up a great point with the Elijah Burke thing. Is it's like, how is it that we don't know how to tell that story properly? And then I get to think of like, oh yeah, that's right, because I've only been in for 3 years, and I know absolutely nothing.
I mean, like technically, I've been in since 2011 because that's when I started. But like, I took those breaks because I mentally just backed out, and so like I'm probably like if we accumulate it all up, I'm probably like 5-6 years in total. But even though I started like 10 years ago, and like there's so much there's so much I should know, and this is me personally. I feel like I should know a lot more, but like it's wrestling. You never stop learning, so like it's never too late to learn it, and I'm okay with that. And like you mentioned that David versus Goliath story, that story I could tell so easily. Like I'm a small guy, it's so easy to tell that story. So like going back to that match with Grizzly O, we could have easily told that story, but there was more layers to that one. Yeah, it's David versus Goliath, but we also are friends from 10 plus years. So how are we going to get the crowd to know that? And like he came out and said something in his entrance, and I said something in my entrance. And like right before we locked up, he's like, it's been 10 years in the making. We said it really loud, like, all right, this has been 10 years in the making. And like, I can't remember exactly, but I know I'd said some other things to tell the story in the, because you gotta let the people know, because I didn't get a good promo before that one, but like use I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I make the content for my YouTube page and stuff, and making the content, it makes me open my mind of like, there's so many stories I can tell so many different ways. I'm a creative person. Why am I not using my means and stuff? And now like I've made like 14 episodes of my little vlog. Three of them have been actually wrestling, but I'm like, holy crap, if I could do this for matches coming up, yo, I could tell so many stories. And like my mind just starts going, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to tell so many stories right now. Like I just want to get out there and tell stories now through my movement in the ring. But there's so many stories I just want to tell now.
Another thing too is like you want to build this like following of people, like to like subscribe to like your YouTube channel, or maybe like your Instagram, or maybe
Yes.
your TikTok, or maybe buy stuff on your pro wrestling tees, or your For Your Wear store, or even for your like What a Maneuver store. Things that you could do to support the wrestlers. But nonetheless, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about like being creative, right?
Get
And the
my
one thing,
my jump shirt on,
yeah, all our stuff right here.
Yes.
So one of the things I think about though is when I create promos, right? Like Red Dog's character is a little bit like all over the place, right? He's kind of like, he loves doing, like I did a promo about doing Blue's Clues, right? I thought that was hilarious, and it worked out so well. And I did a promo one time where I was similar to Luis from Ant-Man, and just retelling the story about how I got pure ignorance to be involved in my three-way match at Havre de Grace, right? A couple months back. And like I got to thinking about, well, I could tell a story about like I could do a Disney character thing, right? Where we're I have a laugh track in the background, and the crowd is laughing at certain things that I'm saying because they think it's funny. And it's like I started thinking of all these crazy ideas, and I'm like, yo. So I started accumulating this thing called The Adventures of Red Dog, and I started putting my promos together. I call them in chapters, and we've just entered part 2, which is like our obviously the second part of Red Dog. But it's like we're telling these funny ass promos and just using different things to like tell the story. So it's, if you ever seen a movie, I think it's called Movie 87 or something like that, Studio
Never heard of that
87.
one, no.
So it has Dennis Quaid in it, and Dennis Quaid essentially locks up this producer, and he's pitching all these movie ideas to the producer to make these movies, right? Like one of the stories was like, sorry for those who do not know what I'm talking about, but this is gonna be funny. He pitches a story that Chris Pratt and Anna Faris, who coincidentally were married at the time, she wanted him to take a shit on his, she wanted him to take a shit on her chest. Like that was the thing. And so like that's like that's like one aspect of a story. Or like another one was like a lovely date night, right? And Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry were together. I think it was Hugh Jackman, but anyway, like they were playing Truth or Dare at the table, and like one of the dares was that Halle Berry had to put her boob in avocado dip and lick it off. But it's like all these random ideas, and I'm like, yo, that is like exactly how I want Red Dog to do it. And at some point in time, like I'll fill in the backgrounds with just me like, hey, well, what if we did something like this? And then just like spitball some random ass idea and then put it all together, and it'll look like one giant movie. And I was like, that's like, and that's the way that the mercenary thinks, is that he's like, man, this would be so much more fun if I put it all together. And it could be, or it just could look like a whole bunch of spaghetti thrown at a wall, as one PJ Savage has told me. But it's going to be hilarious at the end of the day when you look at it, you're like, whoa, he's at one point, he's like interrupting his own video with a video and like just doing random stuff. I'm like,
I love
this is going to be a lot of fun. You know?
I've peeped some of your stuff, and I'm like, this is so random, yet it's so like I'm hooked. Like I can't stop watching it, and like I'm still getting my groove on making my little videos, but like I get it now. Like it's so satisfying making things, and like it just gets your mind going. And then like there's so many things that I'm not going to mention right now that I've figured out throughout my just making these videos and thinking of what I can use in my wrestling going forward. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'm just like, oh, I love the creativity that you get to have with wrestling. Like I love that you like I love that all like wrestlers from the 80s and everyone's opinionated about things, but like the one thing I can say is like wrestling can be anything you want it to be. Like I swear, like, and like I have all the respect for people who paved the way. Anyone who has stepped in those ropes, I respect your opinion, but just wrestling can be anything that you want it to be. And like I'm realizing that now, making my content and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much I can do when I get in that squared circle. And like you're a prime example of it. Like I remember one of the matches I saw you just out there slid out of nowhere, and you just saw serious in the ring, and then like watching some of your promos, you're just hilarious. And I'm like, and that's I kind of use that with Jones World. Like Jones World, like I'm just a nerd. Like I'm nerding out wrestling shows, I'm nerding out toy hunts, or I'm just having fun with my friends. Then when I'm in the ring, it's just completely different. It's like people are like, how? And I'm like, that's just Jones right there. That's just Mr. Jones right there.
It's crazy. So you mentioned that spot, man. That was like one of the crazy. So we've gone back numerous times and talked about that. And like for me, okay, so and we'll fill you in on the details, and then I may even include it at the end of this episode so you guys can see it. But it was so crazy because those guardrails are not tall off the ground. Like they are only like maybe like
barely
7-8 inches tall. And like
I'm skinny, I can't make it that way.
Yo, and the fact that I ran and I just went down and popped back up and just threw the brass knucks to Rico, all in one smooth movement too. And then he clips Skyler and then throws the knucks back to me, and I'm just standing there like, and the ref's like, hey. What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dot Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want you to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3count_pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3Count Podcast also has merchandise. Oh! At ProWrestlingTees.com/the 3Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So, show us some support, please.